He thought no one would ever know, that his secret would stay buried. Married to a woman he barely showed off in public, he felt a quiet shame about her skin color, a shame that twisted his pride into something cruel. When an important business dinner came up, he made a decision that would change everything. Instead of taking his wife, he invited his secretary, a polished, smiling woman who fit the image he wanted the world to see. His wife, unaware at first, sensed the tension the moment she noticed the invitation. The air at the restaurant was thick with unspoken words, polite smiles masking deeper emotions. From the very first moment, the contrast was undeniable. One woman radiated elegance and confidence, the other bore hurt and disbelief, yet carried herself with quiet dignity. As the night unfolded, what he believed would be a harmless substitution turned into a cascade of unexpected events. Fate, it seemed, had its own plan, and his carefully constructed image began to crumble piece by piece. Small slips, meaningful glances, and a sudden revelation at the table left him frozen, unsure how to regain control. Every viewer watching knows the feeling of suspense building, of watching someone's world tilt on its axis. Just when he thought he had the upper hand, a single moment, one look, one comment started to turn the tables in a way he never saw coming. And just like that, the story was far from over, leaving everyone wondering who would really come out on top when pride meets fate. Behind closed doors, the life he had built seemed perfect to outsiders: a successful career, a polished image, and a wife who, in the public eye, rarely stepped into the spotlight. But the truth was far messier. His wife, Maya, had always been proud, strong, and deeply loyal, yet her husband's insecurities and the subtle judgments of others had quietly chipped away at her confidence. She had married him with hope and love, believing they were equals, but over time, the whispers of shame and the sting of rejection became impossible to ignore. The secretary, Claire, on the other hand, was everything he wanted the world to see: glamorous, charming, and attentive. She had long noticed the tension in their home, and now, stepping into this high-stakes dinner, she played her part flawlessly, unaware that the evening was about to twist in ways she could never predict. As the conversation at the table flowed, small hints of hidden truths began to surface. A misplaced phone call, a lingering glance, a slip of the tongue each moment quietly shifted the balance, planting seeds of doubt and curiosity. Maya's quiet composure only added to the unease. There was something in her eyes that hinted she knew more than she let on, and every polite smile from Claire seemed to ignite a subtle but powerful tension. Outside, the city lights glimmered, indifferent to the storm brewing inside. And as the night deepened, secrets that had been buried for years began stirring, threatening to upend not just a dinner, but everything they thought they controlled. Who would take the first step and who would be caught completely off guard was anyone's guess. As the evening wore on, the tension at the table became almost tangible. Every laugh and toast carried an undercurrent of unspoken conflict. He thought he was in control, but with every passing moment, the cracks in his carefully crafted facade widened. Maya remained poised, sipping her drink with a calm that made him increasingly uneasy. There was a quiet strength in her, a presence that drew attention without needing to perform or impress, and suddenly he felt exposed in a way he hadn't expected. Claire, for her part, began to notice subtle glances between Maya and the other guests. Something about the way Maya held herself, the quiet confidence in her voice when she finally spoke, unsettled her. The secretary realized this dinner was more than just a social formality, it was a battleground, and she had unknowingly stepped into the middle of it. Every word, every gesture, carried weight, and she could feel the shifting dynamics, even if she didn't fully understand the history behind them. Meanwhile, whispers of his colleagues and friends at the table added another layer of pressure. Some admired the way he presented his perfect life, others were quietly judgmental, and a few even seemed curious about the hidden tension. Each interaction served as a mirror, reflecting his insecurities and amplifying his fear of being seen as less than flawless. Inside, Maya's mind was racing. She had long sensed his discomfort with their marriage, and this evening confirmed it in ways she couldn't ignore. And yet, she remained patient, calculating her response, knowing that fate had a way of balancing scales in unexpected ways. By the end of the night, it was clear to everyone that this was more than a simple dinner, it was a moment that could change everything, and no one at the table truly knew what would happen next. The restaurant seemed to shrink around them, the low hum of conversation fading as the tension at their table grew heavier. Every smile he forced felt brittle, every compliment he offered to Claire sounded rehearsed. He tried to maintain control, but Maya's quiet dignity was a silent accusation, cutting through his carefully constructed image like a knife. The longer the night dragged on, the more his anxiety grew, twisting his words and gestures into something awkward and unnatural. Claire, sensing the shift, began to fidget, unsure why the atmosphere had turned so charged. The confident ease she had carried in before seemed to waver as she noticed subtle, pointed remarks from Maya that hinted at truths she couldn't yet see. The secretary was no longer just part of a dinner, she had become an unknowing participant in a private reckoning that was about to erupt. Maya's eyes met his across the table, and in that single glance, 1,000 unspoken questions hung in the air. Words that had been left unsaid for years hovered between them, threatening to spill into the open at any moment. The guests around them seemed oblivious, yet somehow, the invisible tension radiating from the couple made the room feel suffocating. Then came the moment that made his heart stop. A phone buzzed on the table, a simple notification, but the content, visible for just a fraction of a second, was enough to ignite suspicion and anger. Gasps and whispered comments began to ripple around the table, and he realized with growing dread that the carefully hidden layers of his life were unraveling in real time. Every move he made now felt like stepping closer to disaster, and every glance from Maya promised that fate was no longer on his side. Just as he thought he might salvage some control, another shock hit him like a lightning bolt. Maya calmly reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope, sliding it across the table with a quiet authority that silenced the room. Everyone paused mid-conversation, curiosity and tension hanging thick in the air. He froze, heart pounding, unsure what she planned to reveal, but the expression in her eyes told him this was no ordinary gesture. Claire leaned in, intrigued and slightly alarmed, as Maya's fingers rested lightly on the envelope. There was something in the way Maya held herself now, calm, confident, unshakable, that made him feel smaller than he had in years. It wasn't just pride or embarrassment, it was the undeniable presence of someone who had been underestimated for too long. Then came the twist he never expected. A text appeared on his own phone, sent from someone he trusted most, someone who knew every secret he had tried so desperately to hide. The message was brief, but the words cut deeper than any confrontation ever could. His carefully constructed life, the illusion of control he had built around his marriage, and even his public image were suddenly at risk of exposure. Maya looked at him, her lips curved in a faint, knowing smile, and for the first time he realized he might have misjudged her completely. Every subtle insult, every moment of disdain he had felt toward her, now seemed insignificant against the storm that was about to break. Around the table, whispers grew, glances sharpened, and the tension became almost unbearable. Fate was no longer subtle, she was about to make him face consequences he had never imagined, and the outcome was anything but certain. The room fell silent as Maya finally opened the envelope, sliding out a single sheet of paper that seemed to glow under the soft restaurant lights. Everyone leaned in, curiosity gripping the air. It was a contract, a legal document proving that she had secretly invested in his company years ago, enough to hold a controlling stake without him ever realizing it. Every decision he had made, every act of pride or concealment, had been quietly counterbalanced by her foresight and intelligence. The truth hit him like a punch to the chest. While he had been obsessed with appearances, Maya had been quietly shaping their future. Claire's confident facade faltered as she realized she had been brought into someone else's story, a pawn in a much larger game. Guests whispered, astonished, as Maya calmly explained that she had always known about his shame, his insecurities, and the way he tried to sideline her. Yet she had never retaliated until tonight, when the world could see what he had tried so hard to hide. His face drained of color, every word he had rehearsed to save his ego now meaningless. The power balance had shifted completely. Maya had not only preserved her dignity but had orchestrated a stunning reversal of control. And just when it seemed the story had reached its peak, a final shock arrived. The envelope contained another document, this one revealing a secret partnership between Claire and a rival company, poised to expose every misstep he had made in business. In that instant, he understood that fate had not only turned the tables on his personal life but also his professional world. The night that began with pride and deception ended in total upheaval, leaving him to face consequences he could never have imagined and forcing everyone to see that underestimation and arrogance can come with the steepest price. The tension finally began to ease as Maya calmly stood, her presence commanding attention without needing to shout or explain further. She had proven her strength not through confrontation but through quiet strategy and unwavering confidence. He, for the first time, truly saw her not as someone to be ashamed of, but as an equal, perhaps even the guiding force he had long underestimated. His pride, once so rigid, softened as he realized the depth of his misjudgment. Claire, meanwhile, realized she had stepped into a situation far more complex than she anticipated. Her polished charm and carefully curated image meant little in the face of real intelligence and integrity. She left quietly, her ambitions tempered by the humbling experience of underestimating Maya. In the weeks that followed, he worked to repair not only his marriage but also his own understanding of respect and partnership. He acknowledged his mistakes, apologized sincerely, and began to actively support Maya's vision, recognizing that true strength lay not in appearances but in trust, loyalty, and shared purpose. Their relationship, once strained by pride and societal pressures, slowly transformed into one of mutual respect and admiration. Guests and colleagues who had witnessed the dinner later reflected on the evening as a lesson in humility and the power of quiet strength. The story became more than just about betrayal or shame. It was about resilience, the consequences of underestimation, and how fate has a way of revealing truth at the exact moment it's needed. In the end, Maya's quiet confidence reshaped not only their lives but also the world around them, leaving a lasting reminder that dignity and intelligence can turn the tables in the most unexpected ways.